Hello everybody, I am Liz, and today I'm going to do another book for a book that's fairly popular, at least the author is extremely popular here on BookTube, and that is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is a standalone retelling of how the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland became the Queen of Hearts. And I read this during Tome Topple just to take a break from reading thick books, and it was an audiobook. It was really quite fantastic. I was really just blown away by how Marissa Meyer just took off with this origin story. Now, I always start my reviews by talking about obvious triggers in a story, and I honestly can't think of one for this book. So if you can think of one, please let me know in the comments down below, because I would really like to inform you all if there is a potentially triggering scenario or situation in the story. As this book is an origin story for a villain, keep in mind that this book is meant to mess with you. It made me happy, it made me mad, it made me sad, frustrated, I was crying, all in the span of a few chapters. My emotions just ran amok in this story as I really wanted to connect with Kath and her dreams and aspirations to become a baker for this society. However, she knew that it was going to be hard to do that because she was the daughter of a marquis, and in doing so that gives her some form of title, so she's expected to try to marry the king, and that's not what she wants, because she wants to be her own person and she wants to make her own decisions and she wants to marry for love. And so I definitely loved it. The plot was so entertaining as they bring about this courtship between Kath and the king, but also they bring this monster in the mix, the Jabberwocky, and just how they intertwine characters from Alice in Wonderland. And so you really get a feel for not only Kath's character, but also characters that are very prominent in the Alice in Wonderland series, like the White Rabbit, the Mad Hatter, the Hare, and all of these other characters, and included child rhymes in the mix of the story to further the plot. It was just so entertaining and done so well that it was such a believable villain creation that I was just ready for its conclusion, but also dreading it at the same time. I also really was entertained by the different answers to the telltale Alice in Wonderland riddle of why a raven is like a writing desk. I do have to say that as I enjoyed the first little moments when they talk about doing impossible things a day, it became very repetitive, and so there was always this discussion about impossibility, and so it did grate on my nerves a little bit as the story wore on. Now, as for the setting, I definitely felt like I was in Wonderland, specifically in the Heart Kingdom of Wonderland, and I just love the nuances that Marissa Meyer created for the world's magic system, and the trickery in the story, and just all the little things and the tidbits that she placed in there to make you feel like you were on this Wonderland adventure. And the characters were so well hashed out. They had all these layers and depth to them. It explored all the sides of these characters, good and bad, and it really just made me connect with the characters and have so many intense emotions as the characters go around their journey. And so, as you can tell, I definitely really enjoyed this story, and I highly recommend it if you enjoy Wonderland retellings and origin stories for villains. As I wrap up my conclusion, we're going to talk about my favorite quote and possible stories that are similar so you can get a recommendation. Now, my favorite quote lands on page 427, and this is essentially Kath's parents talking to her, and her parents say, "But we want you to be sure, absolutely sure this is what you want." His eyes turned wary beneath his bushy brows. "We want you to be happy. That's all we've ever wanted. Is this what's going to make you happy?" And Kath's reply. Kath held his gaze, feeling the puncture of Raven's talons on her shoulder, the weight of the rubies around her throat, the itch of her petticoat on her thighs. "How different everything would have been," she said, "if you had thought to ask me that before." She shrugged his arm away and pushed between them. She didn't look back. So I really enjoyed that quote with its dark, twisty, but also very negative connotations to how her parents went about her upbringing and helped bring her to the spiteful Queen of Hearts. Now, as we talk about the unifying themes to conclude this review of really just what Heartless discusses and talks about so that you can get some good recommendations and books that are similar to Heartless. Big themes, obviously this is a villain origin story, and so it talks about how people can have a villain within themselves and how that villain gets brought out due to certain situations and scenarios. It has obviously a sad ending because she becomes a villain, and also it really has this unifying theme of fate and how you try to change your fate but you end up creating it. And so it was very much a discussion on fate, but it also discusses about how even good intentions, no matter how good and thoughtful and heartfelt they are, it can lead to bad outcomes and really intense, difficult situations that you might not be able to kick yourself out of. So when I was thinking about books to recommend to you that are similar to Heartless, I thought of BioShock Rapture by John Shirley. This is a villain origin story for Andrew Ryan. It really dives deep into the history of Rapture and how the whole city went from prosperity to ruins. And it also has an origin story for Fontaine and just really what brought them to become rivals and villains and all of that amazing atmospheric villain within treachery. I also thought of Marked in House of Night by PC and Kristen Cass. This was a very popular book series when I was in high school and middle school. It was really big because it was like a vampire story and it was that vampire craze back with Twilight. And it definitely echoes the themes of fate and also how good intentions can lead to bad outcomes. So those are my 2 recommendations for books similar to Heartless. If you have some really great recommendations for me that I maybe haven't thought about, please let me know down below in the comments so I can check those books out. I hope you enjoyed my review of Heartless by Marissa Meyer and that it really gave you some insight into the story and whether or not you'd want to read it if you haven't yet. And if you have read it, please let me know in the comments down below your thoughts and feelings. I hope you enjoyed my review, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to stick around on my channel and haven't subscribed already, please subscribe so you can be notified to whenever I post my videos, which is every Tuesday and Friday. And I would love to talk with you, chat with you, keep up with you on the comments down below or all my social medias. And remember that I love you guys, and until next time,